Hello, welcome to Scorpio season. My name is Anjani, and today I'm going to be talking to you about Scorpio as an archetype, how this powerful transformative energy shows up in all of our lives, and how to work with it. So first of all, let's look at the water signs in astrology. We have the first water sign, which is Cancer. Cancer is water in the form of the ocean. It is mother's first milk. It is the amniotic fluid of the womb. So Cancer is very expansive and nurturing and is like the ocean, like it ebbs and flows. Then we have Scorpio, which is water in the form of frozen ice. It has to do with emotions. It's like memories that have become frozen in the body. So our body is mostly made up of water, and Scorpio is water in the form of ice, which can show up as emotions, memories of things that have gotten trapped in the body. And think about the time of year that we are in Scorpio season. We just had Halloween and we had the Day of the Dead, All Saints Day, where we're honoring those who have gone before us. And just the thought, I was in church on Sunday and we were honoring the dead, and there was a certain song that was sang, and the words that came out were very evocative, like evoking an emotional response in my body. Beyond my conscious mind, it was like pulling the emotion out. And so that is just the time of year that we're in. So whether or not you believe in astrology doesn't really matter, because the sun is going down, it's getting dark. Here in Southern California, it's getting dark by 4:58, something like that, p.m. So there is less light. We're doing more in the dark. So what is happening in the darkness? This is a Scorpio topic. Then the next water sign is Pisces. Pisces is water in the form of mist. And it is the most permeable, all pervasive form of water. And I wrote a little note here. It's misty, it's diffuse, and it is permeable. Whereas Scorpio is frozen ice, it is not permeable. It is controlled. It is very stuck. And so what I want to focus on for this video is how to work with that, because no matter what else is going on during Scorpio season, the sun is in Scorpio. So this is highlighting places in our body that have become stuck, memories that have become frozen, emotions that have become frozen, which creates a pattern. So let's go up to my first notes. We are having the sun in Scorpio. Today's the 4th. Today is actually the Taurus full moon. So Taurus is the opposing sign to Scorpio, or the resonant polarity. If Scorpio has to do with all this frozen emotion, it is the Day of the Dead. It has to do with things that have been, I would even say things that were once living but have become frozen in time as a memory. Taurus, on the other hand, of that polarity, being a resonant polarity to Scorpio, has to do with spring and things coming to life, fertility, abundance. I always think of honey and the fruits that are being born and that we get to enjoy. So Taurus has a lot to do with that pleasurable experience of the earthly delights, whereas Scorpio has to do with the emotional imprint of what that thing that was once living leaves in our lives. So if you've ever had somebody in your life who has left the earthly realm, aka passed away, aka kicked the bucket, or however my dad calls it, they've gone everywhere all at once. You know, like I think about my cousin I've had many people in my personal life who have left Earth and have gone everywhere all at once, and they are not gone to me at all. Matter of fact, if I think about my cousin Michael, he's the closest person to me that has left. I can start crying. I mean, I can smell him. I can feel him. I remember how I felt with him around me. And that intensity of emotion is what we're talking about with Scorpio. So this month, this is 2025, during Scorpio season. Now, today I mentioned is the 4th. On the 6th of November, we will have Venus enter Scorpio. And that's going to be a whole exciting transit of Venus and Scorpio, because it's going to be making a lot of interactions with other planets. What the emphasis of when Venus enters into Scorpio, and we talked about Scorpio being this frozen emotion, having to do with death, having to do with the transformation that happens from the process of life. So it has to do with a life cycle. What's going to be coming up is relationships, because Venus primarily has to do with how things relate to each other, how they are in harmony. So Venus has a lot to do with harmonious interactions, harmony itself, music, art, beauty, pleasure, luxury, resources. All of that stuff is coming up as Venus enters into Scorpio, and it may not be as pleasant as we would usually consider Venusian things to be, because Scorpio is not that pleasant as Venus being ruled by Taurus, Taurus being ruled by Venus. Now we've got Venus in the opposite sign of where the rulership is. So it can be more challenging for the topics of relationship, money, pleasure, beauty, all of that kind of stuff. So what I wrote here is that during this time, to focus on exploring your emotional experience. This is really important for anything related to Scorpio. You will look at your chart and see what planets you have in Scorpio. For me, Scorpio is my 7th house, and I have the planet Uranus there. And 7th house being relationships. I am a Taurus rising. So this always, Scorpio season is always very transformative for me. And already I have been getting so much more depth on what the true meaning of this transformative thing is. What is real transformation? And I'm going to talk to you about that. But this really important thing that you must know is that we have something that we call truth. And it is not really true for the most part, but because it feels true in our body. Why? Because a memory has become frozen in time in our body. It's like an emotion. Think about this. I got this teaching from Huna, which is a healing art professional in Hawaii. And he was giving the example of a seawall. Okay, so you imagine the seawall. The ocean is coming up and smashing into the seawall. Now, you cannot make the seawall trap that wave. That wave is coming and going. It's coming and going. Like that, in our physical bodies, we have these emotions. And our body musculature creates a seawall. And as a body worker, being a body worker since 2009, I have felt this in thousands, really thousands of people's bodies, where it's like there's an emotional current and it's attached to a memory which has become crystallized into a belief, which becomes true, but it is not really true, but it is true to the person's experience, their lived experience. And so what the body does is build up a bigger seawall and a bigger seawall and a bigger seawall. It can be here in the shoulders, it can be here in the jaw, in the calves, it can be anywhere. And a lot of times people will come in and it's like, oh, well, I hold all my tension in my lower back like everybody else. And I'm like, no. Some people hold their tension in their calves. Some people hold their tension in a specific area in their hip. Some people hold their tension in their wrists. There is no one place in the body that has become the place that most people hold their tension. So when that big emotion comes up, we will clench, contract, frozen ice. we will create bigger seawalls to contain the emotion. And what that leads to is crystallizing that emotional pattern into musculature. So this is really important, that the next time you're feeling a big wave of energy, if you're with a person, you tell the person, wow, I'm feeling this big emotion. And what we'll want to do is attach it to a thing they said. Like, I'm feeling like this because you did this, and then you did that, and then you turned this way and looked at me, and then you said this. And really, all of those things may have touched that spot in you, but that's not really where the focus is best to be. The focus is best to be on letting that emotion hit the seawall, go over the seawall. And I read something today which was talking about couples. Just like, I'm going to put a little pin in what I was talking about the seawall and letting emotions come out, to mention that Scorpio is right after Libra. Libra season has to do with marriage, partnerships, business partners, relationships primarily. Scorpio is the merging that happens physically, emotionally, spiritually, merging, intimacy, into me see. So Scorpio has a lot to do with shared resources, shared homes, shared properties, shared bodies, shared fluids. So all of that. Now, going back to this thing, what I would put the little yellow pin in, which is that when that big emotional current is coming up, that you take a moment and let it move. Now, when I first started practicing with this, it was really hard to decouple what triggered that big emotion from just allowing myself to feel the big emotion and to allow that energy to wash over my body. But eventually I do now. I'm able to decouple it now, unless I'm hungry, I haven't slept, or I'm some kind of a way that's a little destabilized or dysregulated. It is still more challenging for me to do that decoupling work. But what you want to do is allow your body space to just feel what's happening. My eyes are getting hot. I'm getting dizzy. I'm getting warm. I feel this thing in my stomach kind of moving up toward my throat. Focus on those things rather than focusing. Everything else is a distraction. Honestly, everything else is distracting you from allowing your body to move this frozen water, which is what those big emotions are doing. So, now, the truth that has become a truth, it's really just a crystallized memory or a pattern that has been repeated over and over and over. And there is a word for this in neuroscience, but it's not coming to my mind. It feels really true. And you have all this evidence. You've collected evidence over your entire life for how this thing is true. And I would challenge you during Scorpio season, and also because we have a Mercury retrograde that's starting in Sag, going back into Scorpio, and then so the Mercury retrograde is going to be going through both Scorpio and Sagittarius. So this time during the Scorpio season, and while we have these planets in Scorpio, I give you this challenge to question those things that you really believe, the thing that triggers you the most. Question yourself, not like question yourself, like doubt yourself or anything like that, but just question, where does that come from? Is it really true? I also would encourage you to look up Byron Katie's book, The Work, and learn the steps. It's like 4 short steps. And do that. Every time you have a triggery thought that's coming up, which is making these big emotional waves come through, run through that process of The Work by Byron Katie. And this thing will impact all of your relationships forever and ever until you become really aware of the pattern. And during Scorpio season, you actually start to allow the sun and this year, Venus and Mercury to actually start to melt some of that frozen ice in your body and really allow the trigger to lead to transformation. I have been in the most amazing relationship that I've ever had in my life for about 7.5 months, something like that. And it has been truly phenomenal for me. And one of the things that I'm working with is, it keeps coming to my mind, this phrase, which is allow yourself to be transformed. Now, I do have Scorpio as my 7th house, so transformation is a big feature for my relationship pattern anyway. And so you would look at your 7th house to see what your relationship material kind of looks like in your life. But for me, I already, that transformation is part of my relationship material. But this has become really over and over, when you say like repeated thing for me at this time, where I'm like allowing myself to be transformed. So in every time we're merging thought forms, our spirits, our emotions, our resources, everything is merging. We share a dream space. We dream in the same, we're like merged. And allow yourself to be transformed. So within that, you don't do that unless you have a really strong connection to God. I feel like there needs to be that strong connection to God before you just start merging with people and places and things and all of that, because I think that can also be like schizophrenic type of experience if you just start merging with things and without having an anchor to God and your faith. And Scorpio season really is the time for that. It really is the time for connecting with the unseen realm, with God as the anchor, always God as the anchor, always keeping in your prayers. As my dad would remind me over and over, he said this phrase, stay in your prayer, stay in your prayer. And that echoes through my mind, especially at heated times when emotional intensity gets really heated. Stay in your prayer. And that is so powerful, because a lot of times, if you ever saw the movie What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams, we can get so merged with a place, I think it's called grokking, in that Hawaiian huna, that healing arts from Hawaii. The book that I read, Serge Khalil, I believe is his name, grokking, that we become so merged with a thing that we really can forget ourselves, and we really can forget our own truth. And then if that other thing that we're merging with, especially if it's a person in a body that's alive right now, we can really forget ourselves and be tricked in a way into believing their version of reality, to the point that we lose ourselves. And that is not what I'm talking about, but it is very, very common with Scorpio as an archetype. I'm not saying if you're a Scorpio, that's something that you're going to do, but as an archetype, whether you have Venus in Scorpio, Mars in Scorpio, your sun, your moon, that can become problematic. So make sure that you have your anchor in God and you're grounded, connected with the earth, connected with the sky, and allowing that above and below energy to constantly be streaming through you, so you're not tentacling out this direction and connecting that way. We want to stay connected above and below and running that energy in this direction. So thank you so much. I will be back on probably tomorrow talking more about Scorpio. Also, I want to let you know I have an amazing course coming up with my friend Eric, Big E Astrology, about Chiron. So I'll add the link here.